Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, thanks so much for attending. We had about 100 of you sign up, so appreciate the interest in today's webinar. Last year was certainly another interesting year for sure. There were a lot of changes in how marketers are using agencies, a lot of new things in the technology space, a lot of new tools available to agencies to help them improve the way they search for new business. There's also clearly a lot of uncertainty in the air, but overall, I'm feeling pretty good about the prognosis for mid to smaller size agencies. I think they're in the best possible position to win new business, maneuver around the challenges presented in the market, and survive long term. They just have to prepare for it and put their agencies in a position to win. So today I'm going to try and paint a picture of how agencies need to think about their business as they roll through 2019 and beyond. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Mark Sneider. I'm president of RSWUS. Started the business in 2005. For those of you that don't know us, we're an outsourced lead generation business development firm for marketing service agencies. That's who we work with exclusively. We work with about 50 agencies across the U.S., operating as their outsourced sales and marketing firm. We also run a separate agency search business where we run about 2 to 3 searches a year, typically with smaller spend marketers. That work really helps inform the work that we do on the agency new business side by providing insights that we glean from marketers on that side of the business. And last year we launched a self-service list sales offering called RSW List, different and better than other list offerings out there, and it's proven to be a big help to agencies looking to manage their new business efforts on their own. So this webinar is based off of the 2019 New Year Outlook survey we recently completed among marketers and agencies. This is our 11th annual New Year Outlook survey. And as I think back over the 14 years since starting the business, I can say that there's been one constant in this industry, and that's change. And I think that's a good thing. Our industry needs to evolve and stay relevant and meaningful to marketers. But just like when the evolution of digital marketing forced agencies to rethink how they manage their business, so do agencies today need to rethink how they operate, how they go to market, how they engage with prospects, and how they work to win new business. And just like the agency that failed to fully embrace digital and is now dead or dying, so too is a challenge for agencies today. If you fail to embrace the changes happening all around us, you'll struggle and potentially ultimately fade away. So this presentation is intended to outline the makings of a blueprint to help you guide you on your way through the years ahead. So let's go ahead and get started. What we hope you walk away with today are actionable ideas. I'm a big believer in 2 things among many others. One is giving our thinking away. It's how we established and built this business. The second is to never complain without providing some kind of a solution. And so while I'm not going to do much in terms of complaining today, I will point out the issues and challenges, and I'll offer my perspective on things you can do as an agency to counter some of the forces at play in the market today. The first thing we'll address is how I think your agency needs to operate in order to function properly in today's world. It's not enough anymore to fit every relationship into a like-modeled bucket. Agencies need to respond differently, react differently, and deliver differently if they're going to maintain relationships long-term. We'll also talk about how you need to shape your positioning and how you want and need to look to the market. As we talk later in this webinar, marketers see a lot of sameness in the marketing service agencies that reach out to them, and that's frankly because there is. Changes are underfoot that will require agencies to get more specific in defining what they're bringing to the table that's different and worth the marketer's time to sit down and listen to. And we'll also talk about the best approach marketers, how to best approach marketers when you're actively pursuing them. With hundreds of agencies trying to knock down the same door, waiting for the right prospect to come in via an inbound program, or limiting the channels to communicate with prospects, or not pushing it to the fullest in terms of consistency, is not the recipe for opening up doors and starting conversations with marketers. And lastly, we'll talk about how to best win new business. I personally see hundreds of proposals and presentations on the outsourced agency new business side of our world, and have sat in just as many final pitch presentations and reviewed RFIs that we've written when involved in the searches that we've run on the RSW agency search side of our world. I've seen some great stuff, and I've seen some not so good stuff. So we'll talk a bit more about what works well and what doesn't when trying to win the pocketbooks of marketers in today's world. So before we get deep into things, let's take a look at what marketers and agencies think the biggest challenges will be facing agencies as we roll through 2019. Some of the things marketers mentioned, I think, are easy for the types of agencies we typically represent, those mid to smaller size agencies. Other things noted by marketers, as we'll see here in a second, I think are going to require some big change, requiring the agency to work a little harder and get a little smarter in how they service their clients. And we'll touch on many of these as we work our way through today's presentation. We'll discuss ROI measurement prowess a bit later, but what agencies believe to be a strength in terms of ROI measurement isn't necessarily viewed as such by marketers. Being more agile is certainly something you can tune up your agency to do and be. And the in-house movement is a bigger risk for bigger agencies than I believe it is for smaller and mid-sized firms. Unless you're so heavily dependent on production and or media buying, then it might hurt a little bit more. And then the self-service tools is obviously tied to this in-house movement. So as an agency, you have to find a way to stay meaningful and relevant without relying on production and buying as a driver for revenue. And this last one, but acquiring and retaining talent, is a tough one. I hear it all over the country from agencies struggling to find great talent. My advice, just try and stay ahead of it. Here at RSW, we're always interviewing folks to try and find new talent for our organization. Some of the other things that marketers mentioned in terms of challenges, I think these are all things that you can do, all things that will help you stay relevant and help you maintain your value as clients bring more of the sort of generic offerings in-house. And these two, all things you and your agency can stay on top of and exhibit value when working with your clients. The bigger challenges are the technology challenges, the analytics challenges, and the talent challenges. While things like understanding your client's business aren't an automatic, easy thing to do, it's certainly achievable if the agency puts its mind to it. So those were the challenges marketers believe agencies would face in 2019. Let's take a look at how agencies feel about their own challenges. There's more of this general level of uncertainty that sort of is pervasive in the comments made by agencies about the challenges that they might face in 2019. The unknowns of what the move in-house will bring, how specialization impacts their worlds, the difficulty in predicting what the economy will hold in 2019, all things that kind of hang over agencies this year. These things like oversaturation and increasing efficiencies are tough things to manage in the same universe. Fully recognize that. Oversaturation means you need to spend more time fighting for the same or slightly better business, and physical demands that effort places on the agency makes it more challenging to be highly efficient when attempting to meet as many of the marketers' needs as you can. And again, change and budgets are big themes for agencies in 2019. So before we dive into the what to do, let's talk a little bit about what we're dealing with today. Let's talk about what the state of today's advertising and marketing industry looks like. While marketers are optimistic about the amount of money they'll pour into their own business in general, we'll see in a second here, they aren't as bullish relative to how aggressive they'll be with their marketing spending in 2019. Both agencies and marketers continue to be bullish on their business and presumably the outlook for 2019 in general. For a third straight year, close to 90% of agencies and marketers said they will invest somewhat or heavily in their business. Monies are being invested by agencies in areas like technology and analytics and personnel. That's a great thing for agencies. It'll put you in a great position. Unfortunately, only 52% of marketers stated they will somewhat or significantly increase their spending levels this year, which is lower than the previous 2 years. But on a positive note, 52% is certainly a marked improvement over the levels we saw in 2011 through 13, where marketer enthusiasm dipped as low as 38%. And interestingly, unlike years past, we see some divergence in opinion relative to traditional media spending expectations. Last year, 18% of marketers and agencies expected spending in traditional media to increase somewhat or significantly. 18% of agencies believe this to be true in 2019, but significantly more marketers, 27% to be exact, believe they will be spending more in traditional platforms in 2019. If being well integrated as an agency and taking a more holistic approach was important in 18, it appears that delivering at this level will be even more important in 2019. And interestingly, as we'll see later, marketers tell us that they expect their agencies to not only measure ROI for digital and social platforms, but they also seem to be equally as demanding in their expectations for validating the value of traditional media spends. So as you think about the potential to integrate more traditional platforms into the mix for your marketing clients, you need to also be thinking about how you're going to measure and report on its performance, as well as how all of the platforms impact each other and influence overall brand performance. So as we noted earlier, there is some concern among agencies relative to market saturation. The growth of new agencies has and will continue. Every day we learn of a new agency popping up with some kind of specialty, either technical or sector specialty. Some estimate that there are over 100,000 agencies of all types and sizes in the U.S. alone. That obviously makes for a very competitive and challenging marketplace. And on the marketer side, we're seeing just the opposite. More companies consolidating, fewer marketers managing businesses. This obviously makes for a very challenging new business environment for agencies. And it also creates a situation where there are fewer referrals out there to be had. In recent years' surveys, we've seen a decline in referrals as a source of new business. Many of the agencies that become clients of ours here at RSW on the outsourced lead generation side of our world come in feeling the pinch of a declining referral base. Referrals built their business, sustained their business, but it didn't do them any favors as far as preparing them for the day when the well started running dry. As noted earlier by both marketers and agencies, agencies are now faced with a growing number of marketers moving some portion of their marketing services in-house. In the agency new business survey we ran in 18, 67% of marketers stated they have moved some agency business in-house. And in a recent ANA survey, the number they reported was 78%. I recently read an article that said that Target, the retailer's in-house agency, has something like 200 plus people on its agency staff. This changes the way agencies need to think and act when pursuing new business, when they ultimately engage with a prospective marketer and how they work to sustain a relationship. And we'll discuss all this a little bit later on. Another change we're seeing over the past couple of years is the desire by marketer to hire specialized agencies. While this year's numbers were down relative to 2018, 64% of marketers told us in this survey that they are looking for agencies that possess some measure of specialization. And this is up significantly from 2013, where only 47% of marketers felt the same way. This desire for specialization, whether it's technical or sector specific, requires agencies to think harder about the unique value of what they're bringing to the market. If all you are is a generalist agency with a wide-ranging group of clients, it's going to be harder to get marketers to pay attention and feel like you're really bringing something new and different to the party. As demand on marketers continues to grow to prove out the value of every dollar they spend, marketers are going to be less likely to take chances bringing in an agency that doesn't offer a clear win for their business. And we've talked about this topic of project work throughout, many survey reports. But bottom line is that project work is on the rise in terms of its composition, of all the work that's walking in the door of an agency. I'll speak to the implications of this in a context beyond the hunt for new business. What this changing dynamic means for an agency is two things. The first is that agencies need to look at project work like a financial investment consideration. Agencies need to ask themselves if there's potential for growth via other work or other brands if what they do for this initial project plays well. It might not be the most profitable project, but it has the potential to be a solid investment in what could prove to be a brighter future. And if it is that, it might be worth your time. The second thing is agencies need to put an A level of effort against projects. Where maybe 5 years ago, a project might have been a nuisance, today it is central to an agency's success. Agencies need to put their all into proving to the marketer that they're committed, capable, and ready to tackle other projects that the marketer may have. Projects are how agencies need to prove out their real value. And speaking of value, if you can add additional value beyond the project at hand, I would strongly suggest you do it. It'll help you win the day and put you in good light with that potential long-term client. Interestingly, agencies feel that the opportunities to win new business will increase this year relative to 2018. I suspect that this has to do with the fact that there are more one-off project opportunities, which presents more opportunities to win new business. That combined with the fact that more marketers are willing to bring in more agencies to support their brands, it just simply provides more opportunities. While the overall dollar volume of wins may not be as great, the world as we know it today does provide agencies with more chances to swing for the fences with a marketer after winning a project piece of business. And this chart is reflective of a few dynamics going on in the market. The first of which, something we referenced earlier, the decline in referrals and networking opportunities. Many agencies that come on board with RSW to help them with lead generation, agency new business development, do so because their once plentiful pipeline of referrals and networking opportunities are dwindling. There are fewer marketers making moves to fewer companies, so naturally these numbers will decline. The other factor has to do with the fact that more larger agencies are going after pieces of the pie they might not have historically considered. With big networks like WPP and MDC struggling, they need to find revenue and profit wherever they can. I know our clients have seen agencies they've never seen before involved in searches. And I'm sure you've seen it too, and will likely to continue until the dynamics of how marketers shop for agencies changes. And finally, as we'll see later, there are lots of agencies out there that are doing little to nothing to help themselves win new business. Agencies that have new business directors and those using outsourced services like ours are more likely to suggest that their programs are a success. And if you don't have a program put together to support agency outreach, start it now. While inbound can be a good source of leads, some of the time you need to be more proactive in your attempts to connect with prospects you want to engage with. Whether you do it on your own or hire somebody on the outside, just simply do it. The business of winning new business isn't going to get any easier, so don't sit back and wait or sit back and hope that it all changes, because as fast as the marketing and advertising world is changing today, the more aggressive your plans will need to be tomorrow to ensure your agency thrives and survives. There's one other thing that's happening and has been gradually happening ever since the evolution of digital marketing, and that's the need for marketers and agencies to justify their spends. When digital first came into play, it was all about the creative and the uniqueness of the platform. Today, digital agencies that don't have the ability to provide the analytics and the data, or full service agencies that don't have the same, will have a tough time keeping their marketing clients happy and in good stead with those folks they report to internally. And this year's New Year Outlook survey, 88% of marketers said that it was important or highly important for their agency to have solid marketing analytics capabilities. This is up from 73% in 2016, a rather dramatic jump in the perceived importance of data and analytics. And things aren't getting any easier for marketing agencies or for their marketing counterparts. Demands on marketers to justify spending and measure performance of virtually every dollar they're spending is only increasing. It's not easing up. Not having an agency that can provide the proper marketing and data and analytics capabilities is and will continue to be limiting for marketers. We see it every time a marketer comes to us on the RSW agency search side of our business looking for a new firm. Marketers coming to us feeling like their agency isn't coming to them with new ideas on how to improve their business. Will also prove limiting in terms of a marketer's ability to look forward, better organize their marketing efforts in a way that will maximize performance. If an agency can't dig deep and create plans that creatively keep their marketing clients in front of their customers in an interesting and engaging way, more than likely this lack of performance will catch up with the agency. Fortunately, the majority of agencies surveyed recognize that it will be extremely important for their agency to deliver at these levels, which hopefully will translate in providing marketing data analysis and analytics capabilities as they roll through 2019. Agencies need to always be adding value if they're going to stay ahead of the game with their clients. Part of this involves being a good steward of their clients' customer and business data, knowing how to manage it effectively, how to maximize its potential for business, how to discover gems in a sea of data is what will prove most helpful to an agency's marketing partner. The technology of data management has changed dramatically over the past decade, and so has the expectations of your marketing counterparts. If all you do is sit back and order take, it's highly likely that one day you'll wake up and you'll find that your very own marketing client has woken up and feels like there has to be something better out there for their business. So please try and not let that happen to you. The concern is that not much has changed since last year. More marketers and agencies think that measuring ROI for digital and traditional media is extremely important by a pretty wide margin. And more agencies think that their prowess in the space is solid. Granted, the number of agencies that feel positive about their capabilities in this area isn't great, only 33%. The fact that their perception of their skills so differs from their marketing counterparts is a bit concerning. Agencies need to step up their game in this space. The last couple of searches we've run on the RSW agency search side of our business have been for marketers who felt like their agencies weren't doing a great job of sorting out the value of the marketing programs they were putting forward. They felt like there had to be something better out there, a better way of doing things. Maybe what they were feeling was a residual from the few times they recently had inquired about the return on investment for plans they put in place. And instead of a well-informed response from their agency and a look forward, they got little back from their firm. More marketers are going to make topics like data management, effective analytics, and useful measurement of investment return selection points for future agencies. So the natural question an agency might ask is, what if I don't have the capabilities in-house? And my response would be to look outside for help. There are plenty of technology platforms or strategic agency partnerships you can connect up with to help you work your way through this effort. In past RSWUS surveys, marketers have told us that they're willing to work with agencies that operate as a curator of great talent and technology. Okay, let's start picking apart our issues and addressing the topics we outlined at the start of today's presentation. Let's start by talking about how agencies are managing their new business development process. While outsourcing the activities of lead generation, agency new business development is a relatively new phenomena relative to the advertising business. Volney Palmer is his name, opened the first American advertising agency in Philadelphia in 1850, and we opened our doors in 2005. It has proven a relatively successful way of managing new business development. Among those using outsourced services, 92% view it as somewhat or very successful. This compares to 97% who use an internal new business director, and only 86% who manage it themselves without the help of a firm like RSW or an internal new business resource. The bottom line is it doesn't matter what you choose to do as long as you do something. The challenge with having a new business director managing a program is their tenure is short and the pressure on them and their total cost can be great. Adweek wrote a piece about it a few years ago called The Most Dangerous Job at an Agency. The challenge with doing it without a new business director and managing it as a team is that it can slow the process down if too many people are involved in the decision-making processes relative to new business. In addition to not having someone or some group exclusively dedicated to it, can make it challenging to keep up with. I had this problem when I was working for a marketing services firm back in 2003 and 2004 when we hired RSW out of London to represent us. And of course, the challenge in using an outside firm is that some firms out there simply don't put the energy into getting to know your business and bringing folks into their companies to represent them that aren't well qualified. Of course, not plug for us, but not the case here at RSW. We go through great pains to represent you as well as you would represent yourself. And we also go through great pains to put our candidates through the ringer to make sure they're not only they have the right skill sets and experiences, but they're passionate about seeing their clients win. Now let's talk a little bit about how you should operate as an agency. In order to survive in today's changing world, agencies need to be more nimble and agile. They have to be able to respond to changes quickly. The teams inside the agencies have to be able to work in a highly integrated manner. Silos won't cut it anymore. Marketers need to be able to call anyone on the team and get answers to questions they have about their programs. Quick response times and flexibility is central to meeting the changing needs of the marketer in the marketplace. I was actually just on the phone earlier today with a marketer from a CVB who is dealing with very similar challenges and is frustrated with their agency because of this and is looking for an agency that's more nimble and agile that can deliver the kind of service that they need. So critically important that you position your agency this way. And if you don't have the talents, as I mentioned earlier, to be great analysts and data providers, go out and find the firm that can do it for you before the marketer goes out and finds it for themselves. Marketers are bringing work inside because they feel they can do it just as well as their agencies. You need to stay ahead of the curve and show your marketing client that you're here to not only deliver great marketing and advertising solutions to their business, but you're also here to find new and better resources to help them move their business forward. We've talked about this one to some degree already, but I've seen agencies dedicate people to this activity. At RSW, our Marcom team holds the responsibility of finding new platforms that can help us be more efficient, more creative, more effective at running our agency new business programs. At your agency, maybe having one or two people in your agency own the process can create some measure of accountability and potentially produce better results. We'll talk more about this next when we discuss how you should look to your market. But as far as how you operate, you need to build your agency around some area of expertise and then build a talent, the marketing and sales and content platforms all around it. Once you define your space, put people in charge of writing about it and speaking about it. Put together practice areas that form the nucleus of the team with the expertise in the area. So when you bring folks into a room to present, they can make the prospective client feel like that they aren't just buying an agency, but they're buying a team of consultants that know their industry or area of technical expertise. Speaking of which, agencies should never just look at an advertising relationship with the client as if they are the creative partners. They need to think about themselves as business partners, partners that can bring smart thinking and an intimate knowledge of the client's business. This was reflected in open-ended comments in our most recent survey when asked about the challenges facing agencies in 2018. Marketers said things like know the market, know your audience, and truly understand the client's business. I often tell agencies that you all kind of do the same thing, which suggests two things. One, there's a big need for greater differentiation, which we'll discuss next. And two, you've got to go beyond just doing, and you need to be bringing ideas, industry intelligence, business acumen to the table to extend the value you bring to the relationship. So with marketers feeling like so many of you look alike, and with so many of you trying to knock down the same doors, with so many of you paying so little attention to your own marketing, you need to step out and make a change to how you look to the market. I just came off, actually it was end of last year, a conference hosted by David Baker. Some of you may know David. He's a pretty outspoken individual with some pretty strong opinions about how agencies need to function. This particular conference was focused on positioning. There were 30 agencies in attendance, and each worked through an exercise that helped them better define their agency's unique point of difference, or at the very least force them to think about how they would go to market differently if they had no choice but to pick a direction. And it was certainly an interesting exercise. What follows are some of the principles that he shared. Are you horizontal or vertical, or maybe both? As you think about your agency and what to do and what your point of difference is or might be, ask yourself this: is what you offer in terms of value horizontal, like being an expert in dealer distributor marketing, vertical, like being an expert in insurance or some other category, or is it both? Think about where most of your experience lies. Think about possible common threads that carry across all of the work that you do. I just kicked off with a new client that plays in a good number of categories with deep experience in 3 of them. They also possess a very strong developmental bench that has created some pretty unique platforms that have helped marketers in a variety of business building and market leading ways. So where we'll ultimately go with this is some combination of vertical and horizontal, promoting the client's deep experience and ability to deliver on objectives for the clients and specific categories, but also sell the horizontal skills of the agency as a way of further differentiating them from other agencies operating in the same vertical space. I suspect, based on our personal experience representing agencies, that this positioning should be pretty well received. Are you narrow enough, or are you too narrow? One question to ask yourself when you develop your positioning for your agency is it narrow enough, or is it too narrow? David created a useful way of visualizing this question that helped the agencies in attendance think about how to best respond. He suggested that if you don't have a minimum of 2,000 companies out there that you can target with your agency's positioning, then it might just be too narrow. And he also suggested that if all you have is 1 or 2 competitors when you define your positioning, you may not be well defined enough. During that conference, he talked about agencies that focus on industrial marketing, complaining that they often lose to general B2B agencies when vying for industrial business. Davis suggested that what might be happening is marketing prospects may not be seeing enough of a difference between the two, which may be why there aren't many industrial-only focused agencies in the market today. So think about what you'd tell a prospect if all you had was 15 seconds to explain who you are and what makes you different. When this webinar is over, do yourself a favor and take 20 minutes to define your positioning. And certainly happy to give it a critical look on our dime, give you some perspective. Just send it our way. So this positioning thing is critical. You have to own your space, or a limited number of spaces to play in. We find that the more focused our agency clients are, either vertically or horizontally, the more successful our programs are. I fully realize that it means you might lose out on opportunities that look at your agency and don't see themselves in your firm's specialty, but in the long run, this is going to be the best way to go. One last point to make: once you define your space, live it and own it. It has to be the first thing a prospect sees when they come to your site. David suggested that you need to stand 20 feet away from your homepage, and if you can't figure out what the heck you are and what makes you different, then you may not have gone far enough. Blog about your experience, embed it in everything you do, the case studies you write, the presentations you give, the proposals you respond to. Prospects need to know you are the expert in the space you've chosen, and that if they don't see it everywhere, they're sure to question just how much you're really committed to their category. So let's now move on to the next page of this blueprint, so to speak, which is a tale of how to best approach marketers. This is not a sale for our new list sales website, but it is a sale for making sure you start your outreach by smartly defining your sectors based on where you can best leverage your point of difference and buying lists from resources that are well respected and reputable, or building them up on your own. The next thing you need to do is remember your place in line. You are one of many trying to do the same thing. Get that marketer to pay attention to what you have to say. And marketers tell us in our surveys that they get tons of calls and emails from agencies every day. So if you don't show empathy, if you don't have a clearly defined point of difference and value you can bring to the marketer, it's going to be tough to bust through. So you got to reach out with relevancy. You got to be meaningful to that prospect. One of the bigger complaints marketers have about agencies when they first come in contact with them over the phone or face-to-face is that agencies talk too much. They don't direct their conversation to the prospect. They dominate the conversation. It should be 30-70, you talking, them talking. Any more than that, then it's a problem. Remember, it's all about them, not about you. We'll talk about some specifics when it comes to prospecting here in just a minute. And as you set yourself up and make those calls and send those emails and leave those voicemails, remember to reinforce your point of difference throughout the connections with the prospect. And like we said before, make sure all your messaging aligns across all your platforms. And because you never know what folks are going to be most receptive to, touch them with as many platforms as possible, including mail, which we use as part of our program. And remember, opening doors takes empathetic, persistent, polite outreach sprinkled with value for the prospect. And remember, the pipeline is key to success. Keep it full with prospects of varying levels of engagement, and eventually things will start turning for you. And if you stop that, or your new business person gets sidetracked with pitches and other agency activities and the pipeline dries up, the opportunities are just going to go away. Just remember what I said at the outset of the about referral opportunities. Just because all looks good today doesn't mean tomorrow will be equally as good of a day. You have to be proactive, you have to be smart, and you have to be present. Okay, so now on to our last topic, how to best win new business. In this section, I'm going to share some of the things I've seen over the last 14 years running our outsourced agency new business program, and over the last 8 years running the agency search business. As I mentioned earlier, I've seen a lot of presentations, proposals, pitches, RFI responses. I often provide perspective to existing clients and offer suggestions to help them move forward with better deliverables. And I'm told that, a reasonable amount of what I offer is helpful. So I thought I'd, do the same for you here. The first thing is to always make it about them. When you write a proposal, start out with a recap of their situation and your perspective on how to help them. When you present or meet with a prospect, ask them questions about themselves and their business. Don't give them the old cliche, so tell me a little bit about your business, or what keeps you up at night. Deliver some smart, thoughtful questions that will allow them to see you've done your homework, you know their category, and you're empathetic towards their situation. Ultimately, what you want to make it, you ultimately you want to make it as easy as possible for a prospect to digest what you want to give them. And you want to use every opportunity you can to sell without hard selling. So when you introduce case studies in an RFP response as an example, tell the prospect why you're showing them the case study you're showing them, which should be because of the parallels that it has with their current situation. If you're putting together a proposal or presenting and part of the presentation or proposal involves spelling out why you're a great fit for that prospect, don't talk in hyperboles. Talk in specifics of what you do that specifically relates to the prospect's world. Make it meaningful and easy for that prospect to relate to the similarities between their situation and your experience. It's easy to be lazy, and I think I talk about that in a second. It's hard to take the time and really focus on the prospect and help them understand why you're the best choice for them. And if you can do this, make them feel like you're already ramping up. This is a great position to be in. If you feel the prospect holds some real promise, put in a little extra effort. Interview some customers, talk to some dealers, pull together a competitive analysis, show the prospect that you're on it and already engaged in their business. This will go a long way with marketing prospects. I've seen it many times on the agency search side of our business be extremely effective in helping agencies engage with and really sort of grow connected with that prospect. And please, for God's sake, don't be lazy. I've seen what I like to call lazy responses when I review RFIs during the searches that I run, cut and paste jobs, little reference to the client or their situation, generic, hyperbole-ridden responses, all very lazy. I like to suggest that if an agency is lazy at this phase of the game, then what happens when the agency is engaged with that marketing prospect? My guess is that the same approach will eventually find its way forward. So take your time, be thoughtful in your responses. And I fully recognize that working on project work is a tough thing to rally the troops around, but you need to do it. You need to give it all when you submit the proposal, when you present your thinking, when you lay out your pricing and engagement options. If the prospect holds long-term promise, you have to put the effort into it. And assuming they become a client for this one project, you need to get the team rallied around it to give it their all. The only way you're going to parlay one project into many more later on or into a fuller on relationship later on is to give it your all from the start to finish. We've seen it happen here where clients have delivered excellently on the first project and it's developed into a longer term project relationship or full-on AOR relationship, and it undoubtedly can pay dividends. Once a relationship starts, be the partner and not the player. As we talked earlier on, you have to bring value if the relationship is going to succeed. And lastly, you need to treat every day like it's the first day of the relationship. If you and your agency team approach everything you do with an eye on this single principle, your relationship with your new marketing client will go a long way. So is radical change required? Do agencies need to change the way they're structured, the way they prospect, the way they try and win and keep business, the way they support the clients they have? The answer, in my opinion, is a resounding yes, which frankly is no different than the yes we said in 2005 when I started the business, the yes we said after the recession of 2008, the yes we said throughout the start of this decade, and frankly, the yes we're going to be saying for generations to come. Agencies aren't going away, okay? They just need to think and operate and be different if they're going to survive and bring value and have a meaningful place in this marketing world we live in and live by. It's a crazy one. I think it's a great one and an exciting one, but definitely requires some change. So thanks so much for the time today. You can visit our site. We've got a lot of great content on there that can help out. If you're interested in lists, you can go to our list site and buy lists on your own to help your own new business effort. Certainly, if there have been any questions that have been forwarded during the course of this webinar, I'll address them offline separately, and I'll go ahead and send a copy of this webinar to everybody in case you want to share it with some of your other team members. So thanks a lot for the time today. Happy Valentine's Day, and have a great rest of the week. Take care.